Strange tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Strange Tales from Zhai. Today, I'm going to bring you a story called Huan Niang. When Ruchuan was born into a distinguished family in Shaanxi and was fascinated by the art of playing the guqin from a young age. Wherever he went, he always carried his guqin with him. Even when staying at an inn, he would insist on playing a tune before going to sleep. One time, when Ruchuan traveled to Shaanxi, and on his way, he passed by an ancient temple. He tied his horse outside and went inside to rest. The temple was quiet and spacious, and a Taoist monk was sitting cross-legged in the corridor. He wore a rough cloth robe and had a bamboo staff beside him. Inside his colorful cloth bag, there was a guqin. Seeing the guqin sparked Ruchuan's interest. He walked up to the monk and asked, "Master, do you also enjoy playing the guqin?" The monk looked up at him and smiled, replying, "My guqin skills are average. I'm looking for someone with superior skills to learn from." With that, he opened the cloth bag and handed the guqin to Ruchuan. Ruchuan took it and was amazed by the beautiful texture of the guqin. He plucked a string, and the sound was clear and flowing like a spring. The guqin was of such high quality that Ruchuan's hands itched to play. He couldn't resist and played a short tune. After hearing it, the monk merely smiled faintly, as if he wasn't particularly impressed. Ruchuan, feeling somewhat dissatisfied, decided to show off all his guqin skills and played a piece he was most proud of. The monk listened and smiled again, saying, "It's okay. But your skills are still not enough to be my teacher." Ruchuan found the monk's words a bit exaggerated. He returned the guqin to the monk and humbly said, "Please, master, teach me." The monk nodded, placed the guqin on his lap, and lightly plucked the strings. In an instant, the music was like a gentle breeze on the face, as warm as spring. After a moment, the sound of the guqin attracted a group of birds, which flew in and perched on the trees in the courtyard. Ruchuan was left dumbfounded, immediately kneeling on the ground, begging the monk to accept him as a disciple and teach him how to play the guqin. The monk nodded and patiently taught him the piece 3 times. Ruchuan focused intently, trying his best to remember every detail, but he could only grasp the rhythm of the piece slightly. The monk then asked him to play it again, patiently pointing out the places where his timing was off. Finally, the monk smiled and said, "With your current guqin skills, no one in the world could beat you." From that day on, Ruchuan practiced even harder, eventually mastering the guqin and turning it into his unique skill. Not long after, Ruchuan began his journey back home. As he traveled, the sky gradually darkened, and suddenly, a torrential downpour began. He was still several dozen miles from home, and with no village in sight ahead or in behind, he felt anxious. Just then, a small village appeared on the side of the road. Without a second thought, he hurried toward it, hoping to find shelter from the rain. Ruchuan reached the nearest house and knocked on the door. Inside, it was eerily quiet, as if no one was home. Just as he hesitated, a young woman, around 17 or 18 years old, emerged. She was exceptionally beautiful, like an immortal goddess descended to the mortal realm. When the girl saw a strange man enter the house, she was startled and cried out in surprise, immediately turning and running into the inner room. At this moment, Wen Ruchuan, still unmarried, couldn't help but feel a stir in his heart at the sight of her beauty. After a while, an elderly woman, leaning on a cane, came out and inquired about the visitor's purpose. Wen Ruchuan introduced himself and politely asked if he could stay the night. The elderly woman furrowed her brows for a moment and said, "You may stay here, but we have limited bedding. If you don't mind, I can lay some grass on the floor for you to sleep on." With that, she lit a candle and brought a bundle of grass to spread on the floor, showing a warm hospitality. Seizing the opportunity, Wen Ruchuan asked her surname. The elderly woman replied, "My surname is Zhao." Wen Ruchuan then asked, "Is the young lady your daughter?" The elderly woman shook her head and said, "She's my niece, and her name's Huan Niang." Wen Ruchuan, gathering his courage, asked, "Even though my family's not wealthy, I was wondering if you'd consider letting me propose to your family. What do you think?" The elderly woman's expression darkened, and she said firmly, "I absolutely cannot agree to this." Wen Ruchuan pressed further, asking for the reason, but the elderly woman remained silent and said, "I can't really say anything about it." With that, she turned and walked back into the inner room. As Wen Ruchuan watched her figure disappear, he felt a sense of loss and did not dare to press the matter further. That night, Wen Ruchuan found that the grass on the ground was damp and rotten, making it impossible to sleep. He took out his guqin and began to play. The sound of the guqin echoed softly through the rainy night, and he used the music to pass the long, sleepless hours. After the rain subsided, he didn't want to linger any longer. Drenched in the rain, he hurriedly set off for home. Later, on one occasion, when Ruchuan visited the county town to pay a visit to a retired official, Mr. Gu. Mr. Gu was known for his fondness for associating with scholars and cultured individuals. Upon hearing that Wen Ruchuan was highly skilled in playing the guqin, he invited him to perform. At that moment, it seemed that some of Mr. Gu's female relatives were secretly eavesdropping behind the curtain. A gust of wind blew, and the curtain was lifted, revealing a young woman, around 16 or 17, whose beauty was unparalleled. She was Mr. Gu's daughter, whose nickname was Liang Gong. Liang Gong was known for her talent in composing poetry and writing lyrics, and her beauty and talent had made her famous in the local area. Upon seeing her, Wen Ruchuan felt a surge of affection. After returning home, he immediately informed his mother and asked a matchmaker to propose marriage. However, to his surprise, Mr. Gu politely declined, citing the decline in the Wen family's fortunes. Yet, since that day, when Liang Gong had heard Wen Ruchuan's guqin playing, she had also developed feelings for him. She would often gaze longingly out the door, hoping to hear his enchanting music again. However, due to his failed proposal, Wen Ruchuan felt disheartened and never visited the Gu family again. One day, while in the garden, Liang Gong found an old piece of paper, which contained the lyrics to a song titled "Regretful Spring." The lyrics went, "From hatred comes infatuation, turning thoughts into obsession, each day my heart is upside down. The begonia is intoxicated, the willow grieves for spring, both embrace the same sorrow. Both new and old sorrows take hold, as if a blade cuts through, yet still they grow like wild grass. Since parting, where can I turn in the heavens, passing time between dawn and dusk? Today, the spring mountains frown, gazing through autumn waters, abandoning everything, forsaking it all. The fragrant quilt jealously guards dreams, the jade drip startles the soul. How can one sleep peacefully? How the long night stretches like years. I watch the year pass, yet it feels even shorter. After midnight, it's already 3 years, and who can remain unaging? Liang Gong recited the lyrics several times and felt deeply moved. She kept the piece of paper with her and later copied it neatly onto a fresh sheet of decorated stationery, placing it on her desk. However, when she went to find it again, it was gone. Liang Gong thought nothing of it and assumed that the wind had blown it away. At that moment, Mr. Gu passed by his daughter's room and found the letter. He mistakenly thought it was written by Liang Gong and felt the words to be somewhat frivolous. He took it and burned it. Mr. Gu, not wishing to scold his daughter for this, decided it was time to find her a suitable husband. Coincidentally, the son of Liu, the governor of Lini, came to propose marriage. Mr. Gu thought it was a good match, but still wanted to meet the young man in person. When young Master Liu arrived, dressed in formal attire, poised and with a handsome face, Mr. Gu was very pleased and warmly entertained him. However, after sitting for a while, young Master Liu excused himself and left. As he departed, a woman's shoe was discovered under his seat. Mr. Gu, upon seeing this, felt disgusted, assuming the shoe belonged to young Master Liu. He thought the young man was frivolous and unworthy of his daughter, so he called for the matchmaker and conveyed his rejection to young Master Liu. Despite young Master Liu's persistent denial, claiming the shoe had nothing to do with him, Mr. Gu refused to listen, and the marriage proposal was therefore called off. Originally, the Gu family grew a type of green chrysanthemum that could not be found in any other region nearby. Liang Gong kept these green chrysanthemums in her boudoir and took great care in nurturing them. One day, some of the chrysanthemums in Wen Ruchuan's garden unexpectedly turned green as well. When his friends heard about it, they all came to admire the flowers. Wen Ruchuan cherished these green chrysanthemums so much that he even went to the garden in the early morning to check on them. One day, while by the flower bed, he found a piece of paper with the lyrics of "Regretful Spring" written on it. After reading it, he couldn't help but feel confused. The character for "spring" in the lyrics happened to be his name, which made him even more puzzled that he placed the letter on his desk and carefully analyzed it word by word, finding the tone somewhat frivolous. Coincidentally, Mr. Gu heard about the green chrysanthemums in Wen Ruchuan's garden and was filled with suspicion. He decided to visit Wen Ruchuan's study in person. Upon seeing the lyrics, Mr. Gu's doubts grew even more, so he picked up the letter and carefully examined it. Wen Ruchuan, worried that the content might seem too frivolous, hastily grabbed it and crumpled it into a ball. However, upon closer inspection, Mr. Gu recognized that the content of this letter was identical to the one he had seen outside his daughter's room, which made him even more puzzled. When Mr. Gu saw the green chrysanthemums in Wen Ruchuan's garden, his suspicions grew stronger, and he became convinced that they were a gift from his daughter, Liang Gong, to Wen Ruchuan. After returning home, Mr. Gu told his wife about the incident and instructed her to interrogate their daughter. Liang Gong, upon hearing her mother's words, was speechless and could only cry incessantly, even considering suicide. Since no one else had witnessed the event, and no one knew the full story, Mr. Go's wife, worried that the matter would become a subject of gossip, discussed with her husband and suggested marrying their daughter to Wen Ruchuan. Mr. Go thought this was a good idea, so he secretly informed Wen Ruchuan. Wen Ruchuan, upon hearing the news, was overjoyed, and that very day, he hosted a chrysanthemum viewing feast. During the banquet, Wen Ruchuan burned incense and played the guqin, and it was only deep into the night that everyone returned home, thoroughly enjoying themselves. After the banquet, Wen Ruchuan went to bed. Suddenly, the book boy heard the sound of a guqin playing again. At first, he thought it was another servant secretly plucking the strings, but later realized no one was playing the instrument. He quickly informed Wen Ruchuan of this strange occurrence. Wen Ruchuan got up himself to listen and found that what the book boy said was indeed true. However, the sound was somewhat awkward, as if someone was imitating his playing, but lacking skill. Wen Ruchuan lit a lamp and rushed into the study, but found nothing. Feeling helpless, he returned to his bedroom with the guqin. The instrument remained silent until morning. Wen Ruchuan began to feel suspicious and guessed that the one who had plucked the strings the previous night was likely a fox, coming to him to learn the art. From that day forward, Wen Ruchuan would play a piece every night and leave his guqin out, letting it make sounds on its own. He also started to listen outside the door like a teacher, recording any mistakes in the music. After 6 or 7 days, the music had improved considerably, enough to be evaluated by others. After Wen Ruchuan and Liang Gong married, they talked about the past and mentioned the Regretful Spring poem. It was then that they understood the reason for their marriage. However, they still couldn't figure out where the poem had come from. When Liang Gong heard about the strange occurrence of the guqin playing by itself in Wen Ruchuan's house, she decided to listen for herself. After hearing the sound, she said, "This isn't a fox. Listen to the music, it's so mournful and full of sorrow, almost like it's from a ghost." Wen Ruchuan was a bit skeptical, but Liang Gong continued. The Gu family has an ancient mirror that can reveal the true form of ghosts and spirits. The next day, Liang Gong sent someone to fetch the ancient mirror. When the guqin started playing again, Wen Ruchuan took the mirror and rushed into the study. Using the light from the lamp, he shone the mirror, and sure enough, a woman appeared before him. The woman was startled and hurriedly tried to hide in the corner, but she soon realized she couldn't escape. Wen Ruchuan looked closely and was shocked to see that the woman was none other than the Zhao family's Huan Niang, the one he had met that day while seeking shelter from the rain. He quickly asked her what had happened. With tears in her eyes, Huan Niang whispered, "I was the one who connected you two and worked hard to bring you together as a couple. Now, why are you forcing me like this?" Upon hearing this, Wen Ruchuan put the mirror away and reassured her that she didn't need to hide anymore. Huan Niang nodded in agreement, and Wen Ruchuan then returned the mirror to its bag. Huan Niang sat down nearby and slowly began to speak. "I was the daughter of Zhao the governor. I died 100 years ago. I've always loved playing the guqin and the zither. I was already good at the zither, but my guqin skills were never taught by a master. Even though I became a ghost, this regret has always weighed on my heart. That day, when you came to seek shelter from the rain, I heard your guqin music and became fond of you. When you asked my elders for my hand in marriage, I hated that I was no longer human and could not marry you. But in order to repay your kindness, I secretly arranged for you to marry Liang Gong. The red embroidered shoes under young Master Liu's seat and the poem, Regretful Spring, were both my doing. I have done all this to repay you for your kindness. When Ruchuan and Liang Gong, upon hearing Huan Niang's words, were filled with gratitude and both rose to bow and thank her. Huan Niang continued. I have already grasped most of your Guqin technique, teacher, but unfortunately, I still haven't fully mastered its essence. Please, would you play another piece for me? When Ruchuan agreed, and as he played, he carefully explained the fingering and the techniques involved. Huan Niang listened intently, a joyful expression crossing her face as she said, "Wonderful. I finally understand." She then stood up, ready to leave. Liang Gong, who had always enjoyed playing the zither, was eager to hear Huan Niang's skill as well. Upon learning that Huan Niang was also proficient in the zither, she asked if Huan Niang would play a piece for her. Huan Niang gladly agreed, and as her fingers plucked the strings, a tune of exquisite clarity and beauty flowed from the instrument, its melody and notes unlike anything of the human realm. Liang Gong clapped in time with the rhythm, praising her continuously, and even begged Huan Niang to teach her the art. Huan Niang agreed, wrote out the sheet music for 18 pieces, and then prepared to leave once more. Seeing that she was about to depart, when Ruchuan and Liang Gong urgently tried to keep her, but Huan Niang, with tears in her eyes, said, "You two are truly harmonious, like a perfect pair of Guqin and zither. You are soulmates and muses for one another, destined to be together. I am but a lonely spirit, a wandering soul in the countryside. There is no reason for me to stay here. If fate allows, we shall meet again in another life." With that, she took a portrait from her sleeve and handed it to Wen Ruchuan, saying, "This is my portrait. If you wish not to forget me, your matchmaker, hang it in your bedroom. When you are happy, light an incense for me and play a piece before the portrait. It will be as though I am listening to your music." Before her words had even fully left her lips, Huan Niang rose, stepped out the door, and vanished without a trace in an instant. All right. That's all for today's tale, Huan Niang. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.